game.
Norm and the gang will be back next week.
Hex, I think it's fair to say that a little bit of gaming history came to an end with the recent closure of LucasArts.
Yeah, and even though EA have picked up the Star Wars franchise, it's sad to see a studio with such a unique vision close its doors. We asked Goose to take us on an adventure.
LucasArts was a studio that experimented fiercely. They created a rich catalogue of memorable games, and they spawned some of today's most respected developers. Few studios have left such an indelible mark on the games industry. So, what do you think of when you hear the name LucasArts? Star Wars, of course. And the films played a critical role in the history of the developer. The year was 1982. George Lucas had released his first two spectacularly successful space films, as well as a rather popular one about archaeology. The video game industry was still in its infancy, and so Lucas decided to invest in it by creating his own studio, originally called Lucasfilm Games. Unlike most developers who are under immense pressure to get a game out and start making a profit, Lucas gave his studio a mandate to focus on creating new experiences.
Relax. I have a feeling something's coming our way. Something big.
I have to say.
Hey, Q! There's a bandit on your tail!
Rise, son of Sigma.
Hey there, little fella.
You talking to me?
The first fruit of the Lucas Brains Trust had nothing to do with Wookiees or Stormtroopers. The game was Rescue on Fractalis, a first-person spaceship sim named after its use of fractal technology to generate its rocky alien backgrounds. This was followed by another creative oddity, a futuristic sports game called Ball Blazer. While some of these early games had moments of brilliance, it wasn't until a couple of years later when LucasArts decided to tackle its first adventure game, that's when the real magic happened. 1986, and the game was Labyrinth. Yes, based on that film. It began as a simple text adventure, but only a few minutes in, players' minds were blown when it suddenly turned into a graphic adventure. While competing adventure games seemed to delight in tormenting their players with obtuse puzzles, Labyrinth tried something a bit different. The LucasArts team worked with sci-fi heavyweight Douglas Adams to create amusing puzzles that taxed the brain, but they didn't threaten the player with constant deaths. Labyrinth was a hit, and its concepts were fleshed out to form Maniac Mansion, LucasArts' first point-and-click adventure. The actual pointing and clicking came courtesy of a new game engine designed by one of Maniac Mansion's creators, Ron Gilbert. The script creation utility for Maniac Mansion, or SCUM as it was known, would be the rock upon which all future LucasArts 2D adventures would be built. Instead of needing to type commands, players could now interact directly with the game's world. And what a world it was. Maniac Mansion played on B-movie horror stereotypes to create a rollicking journey that was crammed full of comedy. I mean, how many other games let you microwave a hamster? It all had that sprinkle of 80s magic that we were getting from the company's films. Then LucasArts managed to bottle that magic, and they used it to create further memorable adventure games.
Do you comprehend what you have done?
But it wasn't until Ron Gilbert paired up with fellow Lucasfilm staffer Tim Schafer that the funny bone would be tickled once more. The Secret of Monkey Island, with its dorky yet somehow charismatic hero Guybrush Threepwood, saw the LucasArts team at the peak of their power. This was a game with such witty writing that you couldn't help but lovingly scour through every option in its dialogue trees to wring out every last drop of entertainment. It regularly broke the fourth wall, and unlike other games of the time, it never punished you with a game over screen. It was this warm prodding of the player that made playing the game actually feel more like hanging out with a hilarious friend. It also introduced us to the now infamous art of insult sword fighting. Nothing hurts more than a witty comeback. In another effort to increase the level of immersion in their games, the team at LucasArts pioneered a piece of musical technology known as iMuse that could synchronize the game's music with actions on the screen, as well as seamlessly transition from one musical score to the next. Back then, this sort of thinking was groundbreaking, and it kept LucasArts at the forefront of creative game design over the coming years. And what is the secret of Monkey Island? Spoiler alert, you never actually find out. LucasArts were now in a 1990s groove, going on to produce hit after adventure game hit. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis was the sequel that the indie films deserved, unlike that fourth film that we will not be mentioning.
Aha!
Dr. Jones, I suppose. What an unpleasant surprise.
It utilised CD-ROM to enable real voices to be used.
You'd better apologize! Why should I, you fat tub of lard?
The Fate of Atlantis continued to deliver us movie magic condensed into game form. The timing and delivery of having voice actors was used masterfully.
Indiana Jones? You've got some nerve.
And this formula would repeat itself with those chatty police animals, Sam and Max.
Shall I confront, subdue, and pummel the suspected perpetrator, Sam? Sick him up, little buddy.
Hit the Road took us everywhere from the world's largest ball of twine to a museum dedicated to vegetables that look like celebrities. Those hilarious freelance police were like a comedy duo that time forgot.
I just love to turn this guy inside out. Ooh, that gives me an idea.
Sequels were rare in this golden age, but Maniac Mansion's follow-up, Day of the Tentacle, remains to this day one of the studio's most enduring games, perhaps helped in no small part to its brilliant time-travelling mechanic.
I must go back to the mansion.
Players bounced between 3 different time periods, solving 4-dimensional puzzles, like putting a jumper in a dryer for 400 years so it would shrink enough to fit a hamster. Then along came badass biker Ben in Full Throttle, Tim Schafer's first adventure for LucasArts flying solo.
You know what might look better on your nose?
What?
The bar.
The game experimented with context-sensitive mouse pointer puzzles and had a strong emphasis on dialogue.
If you don't mind, I'd like to step outside with Mr. Ripburger for a little chat.
Excellent idea.
But the comedy writing was still in full force, giving the game that trademark LucasArts feel.
And she parachutes to safety.
Don't you think someone will notice her ejecting out of her car?
No, they'll all be watching you running around on fire.
Yeah, that's another question I have.
While conjuring up wonderful adventure games with one arm, LucasArts was also busy producing some of its most memorable Star Wars games with the other. Dark Forces thrusts you into the Star Wars universe with a blaster pistol in one hand, and with its sequel, Jedi Knight, a lightsaber in the other. After refining 2D graphic adventures for almost a decade, in 1998 the studio pushed their formula into the 3rd dimension with Grim Fandango. It starred Manny Calvera, a Grim Reaper struggling to meet his sales target for trips to the afterlife.
Buenos dias.
You're not the nurse?
No?
You're not here to give me my medication?
No, but I am here to ease your pain.
Guess they couldn't save me, huh?
No, but there's still a chance you could save me.
LucasArts took some big risks with this one. The mouse was abandoned in favour of purely keyboard controls, and the setting was one of the most esoteric. Unfortunately, despite its brilliance, the game went largely unnoticed by the general public.
I give you one job, Manny, and look at you, already screwing it up!
Who were busy being wowed by flashier blockbusters of the very same year, Half-Life, Metal Gear Solid, and Zelda Ocarina of Time. Over the next 15 years, LucasArts struggled to adapt. Adventure games were no longer fashionable, and gamers wanted full 3D worlds that they could explore. The arrival of the Star Wars prequels seemed to correlate with a downturn of inspiration at the studio, so the company began licensing out Star Wars to other developers, which in turn helped create some hits among the misses. In a bid to redeem itself, LucasArts spent years developing The Force Unleashed. Early demos showed off unparalleled animation and destruction technology that wowed the critics. The game, however, did not. Further mismanagement caused a string of costly cancellations, like this Indiana Jones game.
You, the player, will be able to experience the same danger and excitement of the real Indiana Jones.
Even successful franchises struggled, like the Star Wars Battlefront series, as their 3rd game was cancelled, twice. The house that Star Wars built may have been struck down, but LucasArts' legacy of brain-bending puzzles and laugh-out-loud humour have actually become more powerful than we could possibly imagine.
Life was a game to him, and he played it. This doesn't look like the Lincoln Tunnel, Sam. By his own rules.
Welcome to Atlantis, Indy.
He was, and and inspiration.
Use it well.
To us all.
Use it for good.
He gave us freedom. Take off. He gave us power. He gave us wings. He gave us wheels. Thank you for giving us a dream that will never die.
Good game.